In the first couple reels, we were backing out due to a road in Colorado, a section, this part of the road blocked by snow, so we had snow, so we had to back out. But the whole point is we believe that the best way to save lives is that prevention is going to be the best cure. We're not public speakers, so but to save lives, the best thing to do is to prevent people from going missing in wilderness areas and deserts. And this is not a conclusive. Basically, this is more of a what we think is essential, but it's not all inclusive. There are there are several among many that are highly important that people neglect. There are a lot of people who go out into wilderness areas. They shouldn't even be out there in the very first place. But basically, to enhance survival, we're going to do this in the most practical manner. Some traditionalists might start with physical topo map, compass, land navigation skills. Land navigation skills is essential, and I believe it's an essential backup. But I also realistically think a lot of people will never bother to learn the essential survival skills of manual land navigation by map, compass, taking a bearing, knowing where you are, orienting your map, knowing how to basically knowing how to use the map and compass together. Okay, but basically, and so we want to shift right to the practicality that the easiest way for survival, in terms of not getting lost, everybody should at minimum have, first and foremost, there are among several things, we can't do speaking. This ain't working. I think I'm not going to get sued when I say that in desert environments, at least, in hot desert environments, I would say water is number one. That's number one. Food, shelter, clothing, right shoes, whatever, notwithstanding. Water's number one in terms of supplies, and the survival part in terms of not getting lost. People need to have basically at minimum a physically separate GPS unit, offline GPS navigation app, for example, on the mobile device. People need to use an offline hiking app. Some may come with a subscription, might cost you a little bit, but basically there could be some some might be free, some might be paid. I can't guarantee, don't quote me on it, but basically you need to have an offline navigation map system on your phone, right? Okay, make sure you have that, and a physically separate GPS unit. And on the physically separate GPS unit, one of the most essential skills in terms of GPS, don't tote around a separate GPS unit as a it's not a show off piece. Anytime I park somewhere, the first thing I do, other than setting preset coordinates, you mark where you parked. Okay, well, this is what I do. I physically mark where I parked, and I navigate to the marker that I marked on my GPS to make sure that it recognizes that the coordinates, that the marked coordinates on the spot are correct. So basically, at minimum, your GPS should point back to where you last set off. And you can set waypoints, additional waypoints, but basically you need to make sure your GPS unit actually points you back to where you set off from, where basically wherever your base camp, your nearest base camp. No, you don't tug along a GPS. You don't take a GPS around for looks. You take it to use in the field. You make sure the coordinates are correct. You make sure before you start hiking that your GPS unit can point you back to where you start off from. And the next point is that I think everybody should Some phones, I believe, have a satellite, some type of satellite burst capability that allows you to send a message uh, by way of the satellites in an emergency. That's a good feature to have. Solar portable rechargers, that's essential because you talk about, okay, you have an offline hiking map on your phone. You got a redundant, physically separate GPS unit. Um, then you need to have a portable recharger, ideally a solar portable high capacity recharger that will last many, many cycles and can be, recharged, obviously. The cables, you need to test the cables. This is the problem with cables, right? Sometimes your mobile phone cable, say if you have an iPhone or you got an Android, right? Um, you want to make sure you have the cable part can be tricky because this is the problem. If you bring the portable recharger, solar recharger, you have your GPS unit, even make sure your cables are right. Not only top of that, you don't want to find yourself in a bind and all of a sudden you don't know what the point of failure is. Um, you got to make sure you test the cables. If you have an offline hiking map on an iPhone, well, sometimes I take redundant cables and I test both cables out. GPS unit has a separate cable. Sometimes a GPS unit and your mobile phone are going to have different cables. So before you go out in the field, you need to do the field test. You need to do your pre-field checklist, your recharge your battery, your test the cables to the device. Make sure your devices, the electronics are working properly, the cables are working. You don't want to go out in the field and find out you have a bad cable. You can't, for example, you still got 8 miles on your return journey, but your device is running out of battery. You don't want to find out in the middle of nowhere that your cable doesn't work. You got a portable battery, but your cable doesn't work. So people need to take precautions before they even set out in the first place. Preventing a missing person is better than going after and looking for a missing person after they're already dead.